Cool. Hello, everyone. We're recording lecture today. This week is lecture 2, week 2, additional tools and critique. So last week we taught a couple of the basic tools like the selection tool, navigation, movement around the Figma file, and also what all of those sidebars, all of those kind of panels within your workspace mean. This week we'll be building on some of those basic tools with kind of the last few in the suite of tools. And then we're also going to be talking about styles, color, type, as well as critique. So this is a pretty important lecture, just thinking about the fundamentals of design, especially as you go into this week. Our lab for Thursday is actually going to be a critique of your trading cards, which I'm going to snoop and look at all of them because I love this assignment. And I hope that you have had a little bit of fun making your trading cards. We'll be talking a little bit about color theory, type theory, and that kind of thing. So to start off, we noted that the yell key hasn't been working lately, so we have bit.lys this week, and hopefully these are okay. Let me know if any of these links don't work. But the attendance form is at bit.ly/fd-sp22-lec2. They're all going to be formatted in this way with Figma Decal Spring22. These links are now permanent. They will not expire, so if you're watching this in a recording, they should still work, and you can go ahead and visit those links. You can also access the lecture file at bit.ly/figmadecal-lec2. That's going to bring you to the community file, which you can then duplicate, or you can follow the slides along. We've mentioned this before, but we do highly encourage you to have some kind of Figma file open while you listen, because we say a lot of shortcuts, we say a lot of things that are kind of hard to grasp just listening. So if it helps you to do things while you learn, we highly encourage that you have a file open. Yes, so we're going to have a demo later in the lecture as well, which might be helpful to follow along with. If you duplicate this file, you could have access to exactly what we are looking at. This link is also going to be permanent for the future if you need to reference it later. So we're going to start today by introducing our two lecturers. Caden and Aaron are going to be teaching today. Caden is starting this next section. We'll have Aaron pass the baton later. But yeah, take it away.
Awesome. So yeah, we'll start off. Also, if I talk too fast or if you have any questions, just let me know. But awesome. We'll be going over more tools in addition to what you guys learned last week. And these are just further skills in Figma that help collaborate and communicate with your peers especially. So first one is the pencil tool. And the pencil tool is basically a freehand draw tool in Figma. I feel like it's a little more informal than other tools in Figma. But the cool thing about the pencil tool is there's like a smoothing effect when you use it. If anyone uses Illustrator, you know that the pencil tool, it has very jagged lines when you're using it, but Figma fixes that for you. The pencil tool, if you look on the toolbar, it's underneath the pen tool. So I think the pen tool is the default. But if you click down, then you have the option for the pencil tool. And the shortcut is Shift P versus P, which is for a pen. And the primary use for the pencil tool, it's usually used for rough sketching and note-taking, more like informal use, like I said before. And usually it is better to use it on an Apple Pencil or something. Personally, in my experience, I feel like I don't usually use the pencil tool that often. Usually other tools are take more priority. But if you want to circle things or just take note of random little things, I think the pencil tool could be super helpful. Next is commenting. Commenting just got a huge revamp. I kind of got caught up on it a lot yesterday, but there's a lot of new things to commenting, which is very exciting because I feel like before commenting was not as it just wasn't there before. But basically commenting is used to create and respond to feedback. So you could do tons of things with commenting. You could comment on the other people's files or frames. You could tag other people if you need someone to look at something. You could reply to people's comments. You could delete them. You could resolve them. So there's a lot that goes into this one tool, definitely much more than the pencil tool. In terms of where it is, it's also in this toolbar. It'll be located all the way to the right. It has the little speech bubble. You could also shortcut that by pressing C, and then all those comments will come up. And now I think with the update, when you go to the comment tool, there's a whole sidebar dedicated to just comments. So it's much easier to navigate those comments compared to before. And then why is commenting so essential? It's just a huge part of collaboration. I think commenting is going to be integrated into a lot of homeworks and labs. And especially when you work with others on the same file, that's a primary way of communication. Kind of like how Google Docs, you could see everyone's little cursors on one doc. Figma is like that, but just better because there's a lot more you could do with it. This is a quick example of like what commenting looks like. On the left hand, that's the commenting tool, the little speech bubble. And on the bottom right, with the new update for commenting, when you like zoom out of your file, they put if a lot of comments are close to each other, you'll see them in clusters. So that it's not like overwhelming. If you imagine like 100 comments on a file, just a bunch of tiny circles everywhere, that's no fun. So that's just easier to like look at. And then over here, like if you see Tiffany's comment, you could mark that as unread if you like want to do that, or you could copy that link. And then below for Miles, you could sort this entire comment section by like a date or by unread if you want to see what you weren't able to see. So especially like when you have tons of comments, it's like super helpful to have these like little filters going on and stuff. And then these are the new features in commenting. The first one is clicking and dragging. So now you have like a lot more agency when it comes to commenting, because you could give more context into like what you're trying to highlight or what you're trying to comment on. You could leave more specific feedback. This was like the default way before the update. You would just kind of like click and then you put your comment, but now you could drag to highlight like a broader area, which is super nice if you want like something more broad to be addressed. Like a quick example I could think of is if there's like one specific element you want to provide feedback on, you just click and provide that. But if you imagine like you have a frame and there's a bunch of elements and you're kind of worried about the composition and you want to comment on that, then that's when that dragging tool for commenting could come in handy. Another big update is docking comments, or I guess pinning comments. Basically, you could view a comment while also iterating or editing a design while having a comment there. I think before, like you look at a comment and be like, okay, this is what I need to fix. And then you go to design and the comment would disappear. But if that comment is like super comprehensive and dense, it might be nice to just have that pulled up to the side. So now you could click the arrow in the box of a comment and that'll push it to the side and it'll stay in that fixed position. And now you could look at it, go back to your side, back and forth, back and forth. And then last but not least, hovering and reacting. I think this just like helps with the overall like accessibility of commenting. Like quickly hovering over comments so you could see their name and their comment. And also reacting. Like before you would have to type words. Now you could just quick react like an emoji, which is super convenient sometimes if you're just too tired to like put your thoughts into words, I guess. And then this is what that looks like on Figma. So clicking and dragging like pinpoint something specific, and then dragging, you see like the rectangle highlight, which is nice. And then docking comments, you could see I circled that little arrow in red. That's using the pencil tool. That's when pencil tool could come in handy, by the way. And then you see like that big comment gets passed to the left. And then you could also move that wherever you want on Figma, which is super nice. And hovering and reacting, if I go over mine, you can see my name, and then I commented hovering example. And then right below that, you have a couple fun emoji reaction options. Yeah.
I have one more thing, sorry.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Sorry, I need to talk to the camera. One other kind of secret thing about comments that they don't express very well is that you can hide them. So if you get really distracted by having 1,000 comments on your file, if you press Shift-C, it'll hide all the comments on the file. You can press Shift-C again to bring them back. So this is helpful if you say, run a critique with 30 people and they've all left 6 comments in your file. Now you have 180 comments in your file, but you don't want to be distracted by them while you work. You can turn them off with Shift-C.
Yeah, forgot to comment that. I mean, that was super important too. Yeah, Shift-C to toggle on and off comments. Yeah, awesome. And then exporting. Once you have like everything finalized, what do? You export. So it could be exported through Figma in various mediums. There's PNG, JPEG, SVG, and PDF. There's also some customizable settings with like how you do that and stuff. How to do that? So if you click on a specific frame you want to export, on your right toolbar near the bottom it says export. And then the shortcut to that, I don't even know the shortcut. Command-Shift-E. Yeah, I usually just go straight to like, I feel like it's easier. But yeah, so the file type's PNG, a bitmap image format. I feel like overall this is like the overall best in terms of quality, because your image quality is not reduced when you're compressing it, versus a JPEG, that's pixel based. So like you're sacrificing your quality, but you get a smaller file size with your JPEG, which could be good, I guess. And then SVG, which is a scalable vector graphic. basically you won't have any blur because that's not made of pixels. Kind of like Illustrator, when you're making designs with vectors, no matter how much you zoom into that, you're not going to get like that pixel-based quality. These are some visual examples of what that looks like. You can see PNG, it's like pretty nice. The image quality is not reduced. JPEG, like this planet, I'm assuming like if you keep zooming into it, that's what it's going to look like. Could be bad. And then SVG, this banana is like the clearest banana you'll ever see in your life. Like no matter how much you zoom into it, it's not going to blur, which is really nice. And then I just want to say real quickly, I feel like PNG and JPEG are like the most common, alongside PDF. Those are like the most common formats. I feel like SVG is not too common, at least from my experience, yeah. Okay, does anyone have any questions about any of the tools I just covered? Okay, awesome. I'll move into typography now, which is I love talking about. So typography and design, basically everything we read is integrating some type of like typographic design into it, whether it's for like ease of accessibility or easily digesting text. It's so important, and not only that, but also it could provide like personality and like life to like a website or something that it's representing, and even express emotion through characters. I'll go more into it, but this example is like Medium. And Medium's like an amazing example of like text hierarchy and just very minimal, but super easy to navigate and read and just get like the information you really need from it. So this slide always confused. I made this slide. I don't even remember like what this is. I think the bottom left is a website, but these are just different examples of how typography can be utilized. I feel like this is not the best example. There are better examples coming up. The difference between a typeface versus a font, I feel like a lot of people get this confused, but basically in simple terms, a typeface is like the umbrella term, and then a font is like the following term for that. So a typeface is like a family of fonts, and then the fonts make up like every individual part of that typeface. So for example, if you have Times New Roman, that's a typeface. But if you want to get specific with it and assign it like specific attributes, like it's Times New Roman 12 point bolded, then now you have a font. So I hope that made sense, yeah. And then the two like big classes of fonts you have, I mean, of course there's like other classes, but this is the main one, serif versus sans serif fonts. The easy way to explain this is sans serif, they look super clean. Like you have clean cutoffs, and then serif fonts, they're usually like a little more fancy. I feel like they have nicer curves at the edges and everything. Gives that like more classic feel. So because of that design choice, sans serif fonts tend to look more like professional, slightly more modern, and then serif fonts tend to be like, oh wait, I switched that, I'm sorry. Sans serif fonts tend to look more modern, like common fonts like Futura and Helvetica, those are like the most popular sans serif fonts, and then serif fonts are like, you know, like I said, more classic, slightly more timeless, hence Times New Roman. And this is an example of like so all the serif fonts are on the left, and all the sans serif fonts are on the right, and you could kind of tell like when it comes to type and identity, how that type choice ties into that brand identity. So obviously you have Berkeley. It's like a academic institution. It's very reliable. It's old, I guess. And then Time, of course, it's also like timeless, very classic. And then Tiffany and Co, I feel like their roots are also like kind of classic as well. Versus on the other side with your sans serif fonts, you have LinkedIn. It's like more modern, technological, and then Microsoft always innovating, and then Saint Laurent, they're like always trying to build upon like their high fashion style. So I feel like the left keeps more to their roots, and then the right is like always trying to like come up with something new. And you could see how the type informs that style. This is a quick comparison again of like what that would look like on a magazine. So if you have Vogue, again using a serif font, very timeless, very reliable, versus the right, which basically uses all sans serif fonts, very modern. Oh, it literally says modern. Yeah, very modern, and it ties into the aesthetic of that building too. Or not building, that home. Just like very modern looking, industrial. So just the way type informs everything into like the context of like a certain organization or company or publication, it's all very intentional. And the crazy thing is, I feel like if you're usually not paying attention to that, it kind of just like subconsciously you just like notice it. Yeah. And this is what type hierarchy looks like on user interfaces or mobile devices. You could see in the middle, New York Times usually uses like very classic serif fonts, while apps like Airbnb and Uber Eats, they're always usually using sans serif fonts. And then I'll get a little more into the Uber Eats example in a bit with hierarchy of fonts. I feel like I've already been talking about this, but it's so important to establish visual hierarchy with typefaces because you're creating visual interest and you're also helping guide your reader or your viewer to look at certain information. So if you look at the image, the headline is like what you want readers to read first. Like you want to tell them that that's what they're going to be reading about, while the body copy is not bolded. It's a different font. So you could see there are ways to differentiate between all these types of labels and headlines and stuff like that. And if I go back real quickly, you could see how Uber Eats does this. So the $0 delivery fee and the hidden gems, those are bolded. They want you to know like these are categorical things, or using that discount is super important. And then the finer details, like it might be hard to see, but under hidden gems it says up and coming spots you'll like. That's not bolded, and that's even in gray. So you already have like a way of navigating that app. If you imagine all the writing on that being one typeface with the same weight, the same font, it'd be such a pain in the ass to like try to order food. So that's like a great example of type hierarchy. And then mixing and matching fonts. Generally speaking, when you're trying to choose typefaces and such, simple is always better. I made this mistake when I first got into design. I would try to like find the fanciest headline fonts and then pair it with something even crazier for the body copy. That's a horrible idea, unless you're like trying to be intentional with it in some sort of way. But in general, simple is much better. Using too much, it could just be too overwhelming and really disorganized and not fun. And especially when you mix and match, the contrast is super important too. These two examples are like super common in a lot of like just everything, usually like having a title or a headline as a sans serif font, and the body text is a serif font. That's like a very easy like hierarchy to look at, and it's really easy on the eyes when you're reading it as well. So that's a great example of visual hierarchy in terms of type. But you could also group by similarity. You could see New York Times for their headline and like their sub-headline, they stick to a serif font, but the only differentiation is the weight. And then, yeah, so this is also one way you could do it. There's many ways. I think the bottom line is like try to be as simple as possible while still creating that contrast when it comes to your text. Yeah. And then these are the weight of fonts. I feel like, yeah, I think I covered this already. But as you can see, usually you do not want to use ultralight. I mean, I feel like not too many fonts have all these options in terms of weights, but the ultralight is really hard to read, while the bold is super easy to read. So I think having those options is really nice to differentiate your headlines or your body text and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, you just have a lot more freedom when it comes to establishing your text hierarchy. And yeah. And then delving even further into what I talked about before in terms of type and identity. So this specific style and choice of typeface can dictate the motions and values of a brand's identity. In this example, you could see there's a serif and a sans serif font paired together, and that's kind of like hinting at, originality and innovation like coming together, but it still maintains, you could see like this very minimalist personality, especially since it's a makeup brand. I think, what's that one makeup brand? Wait, why am I? There's one super popular makeup brand. I don't know why. I was just gonna say it has like a very minimalist like packaging and design. Like everyone uses it. What is it? Ordinary? No. Oh, Ordinary is one. There's no. Glossier? Glossier, yeah. I don't know, I couldn't think of that. Yeah. But those brands also approach like type in this kind of sense, I feel like. Like very minimalist, not too many colors happening in the packaging and the website and all that stuff. So it kind of ties into that aesthetic. And in contrast, this is like a crazy chaotic mix of everything happening. I feel like if you're trying to buy something on this website, it's like good luck because everything's bolded, underlined, so many colors happening. I'm not even sure if this is like a real website. No, it's okay. It's a real website, but like if it's as a joke or something. But yeah, as you can see, there's a lot going on here, and it probably would not be best in terms of if you're trying to buy something. And then these are just resources in terms of finding like fonts and typefaces. I know that I really struggled to find like really good typefaces. I would look everywhere, and they'd either be like really expensive, like I mean like up to $100 sometimes for a font, or if you visit free websites, they just don't give you good fonts because the kerning and everything about it is off. So these are some resources I used. Typewolf, this is like a blog website, but they're always updating with like new trends in typography. What's the best for this occasion? You want to make this, use this font. So it's super nice just having these more professional resources that make blog posts about what you could use for like a body text that's interesting but not too much, and et cetera, et cetera. So this is super nice. And then Adobe Fonts, they just have like a huge collection of fonts that you could draw from, especially like very clean fonts as well, and very reliable because it's Adobe. And then My Fonts, yeah, that's the largest collection of fonts on the web. I just put that there. I'm personally not a fan of My Fonts because you actually have to buy them, I'm pretty sure. Like most of them you have to pay for. Don't pay for fonts unless like absolutely necessary. So yeah. Does anyone have any questions about anything I just said? I don't know if I spoke too fast or something.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just now you said something about like using serif or sans serif for the title and then the body. Which one would you recommend? Which approach?
I don't know if I have like a specific recommendation. I feel like that's up to personal choice with what you're making. But at least what I notice is that usually a lot of titles, at least from my experience, is sans serif, like that more modern face, and then the body copy is usually that serif font. I feel like that looks really good on the eyes, at least when I'm reading an article or something. Versus New York Times, you saw they did the title as a serif, and then the body, I think, as a serif as well. So either way, I think it's fine. It's just like choosing your little choices in terms of like bolding something or italicizing, all your little options like that. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. Yeah.
Something with that as well is definitely like identifying identity. I challenge you to find a single app on your phone that uses a serif font anywhere. For the most part, like apps like technology will use like sans serif.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about that. So an example of, I feel like a website. Yeah. How do I? Oh, there we go. Goodreads, I feel like is like desperately in need of like a UI update. I don't know if it's just because I just got on Goodreads, but I feel like this is just really hard to navigate. I feel like books do have that more classic feel, but in terms of navigating, I just get really confused. Like this profile page is just, I don't know. There's just not enough contrast, I feel like. Like I rate this book, but then there's a rate this book as well. Like what's happening here? A lot of links happening, and this drop-down menu. There's just too much happening. So this is an example of when a website needs to be updated in terms of like text hierarchy or something. And then real quickly, let me see. What does the home look like? Oh shit, never mind. I'll just stick to that then. But yeah, that's it. And then Aaron will now come up to talk about color, styles, and critique. Yeah.
We're gonna go ahead and take our break first. You know, some of you all have been sitting here for a little bit. So we'll take a break for like 3-4 minutes. We'll come back around 6:42. For those of you watching, 4 minutes. Thank you.
This is like crutch. Yeah. It's a nice hobby. Just like I've known them for a while. I feel like the US stayed the same since I first got it, which was like 2013. I feel like it's quite serious and had better for a long time, but the story that came out on the subject wasn't held that long. Maybe letterbox thing. I don't know if it's just because I'm on it all the time. It's like, I think one of my stories are better. Right? It's not.
Wait, is Goodreads for like actually reading or just like bookmark the books?
It's like writing reviews and stuff.
Oh.
It's like a diary.
Oh.
For books.
How like a notion why these chapter books and stuff?
I would check out the story graph. They're one of the story graph. It's like name. But
Nice.
I really like about calculation in my life. Oh yeah, that's a bad thing. Because like, how do people remember what movie they were watching? Like I would never I would just watch a movie and be like, oh good, and forget about it. I might do too much, but I think it's like it's kind of used to now. It's the same thing. It's like a diary. Yeah. It's fun now. Yeah, it's really fun, guys. Like movies that people usually love, they just see like people on Letterboxd just destroy. I think like everyone on Letterboxd likes right to be though. That's true. Obviously, it's the best movie ever. Like kids love that movie, and like the most pretentious from the rest of that movie. So it's like, what's good?
It's so boring. I'm still really creeped out by like the faces being like super exaggerated. You know, like very
Oh, like super sharp,
like
yeah.
super sharp necks. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's my favorite. I always, if I'm cooking a hard dish, I start playing on one time. That sounds fun. You're right.
Ready? Yes. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started again. Wrap up your break. This is Erin.
Hi. Hi. Okay, so today we're going to talk about color. I'm sure all of you already know what color is, have used color, especially in your trading cards. You guys all made very intentional decisions about what color you're going to use. But it's important to consider that some of these colors have different cultural implications and subconscious biases that you associate with each color. And so we're just gonna go through them and learn how you can use those biases in your designs going forward, especially when you're designing a website or UI UX for your midterm and final projects. So yes, color and design. Colors They can attract attention, convey emotion and meaning, and they can be used to like kind of organize your design. A little like Typeface, you can also use color to, you know, create that visual contrast. So our first color is red. So red is very emotionally intense, it's very passionate, it compels you to action. You'll see a lot of alarms are red. That fire alarm right there is actually red. So obviously, like, it's very, very alarming. And here are some examples. You have Netflix, stop sign, Tinder, and CNN. I feel like red with Tinder is also associated with love or lust, like red hearts for some reason. And also fire. You can see the logo is also fire. So again, like really honing in on that like bold, vibrant tone. And then CNN, like breaking news, is also red. And stop and Netflix is like compelling you to like, you know, click one more episode, watch more TV, which I guess technically isn't really that much action, but you know, it wants to make you feel like it's action. So that's why we have red here. And you would also be surprised if something that was supposed to be calming was like actually bright red. Like if all those green chairs were suddenly bright red, I feel like you would feel like a little unnerved coming into this classroom. And now we have kind of the opposite of red, which is blue. It is calming and reliable, and it establishes trust and reliability, especially with companies that handle your money and information. So some examples here are Facebook and Chase. So yeah, Chase Bank is blue because, you know, it's blue is trustworthy and they're handling your money. But then if you also consider like Bank of America is green and then Wells Fargo is like a maroon, I guess it's trying to stand out from its competitors, but in the case of Chase, it's blue. And Facebook is also blue because it's also calming. It's not very overwhelming. The focus is mainly like on the content and not like the interface of the app itself. And okay, we also have text messages, which when you send a text message, it's blue unless you're on an Android, which is green, which is kind of weird. But like blue, you would be really surprised if this text message was just like bright yellow or bright red. Like you're not sending an alarming text message, you could just be sending anything in the content, which is like why blue really works here. And then these ocean tones. And actually another interesting example is that we brought up Tiffany and Co. earlier. If anyone knows like the boba shop in Palo Alto called T4, if you read into it, they actually color their entire store like Tiffany Co. blue because they wanted people to associate their store with luxury, because Tiffany & Co. is associated with luxury, like just solely based on the blue color. I don't know how much that actually worked, but you know, it's interesting to consider. And now we have green. So green is peaceful and healing. It's associated with a lot of eco-friendly brands, so like plants and stuff from the environment and nature. It's very like down to earth. And here's some examples. We have eco-friendly paper towels and then a graphic about the environment. Basically, like any product that's eco-friendly, like no matter if it directly relates to plants or not, is usually green for some reason. Like if you notice, whenever something's compostable, you look for that green little like recycling or plant symbol. Yeah, it kind of cues you into the eco-friendliness. And then, yeah, Starbucks and Spotify. I feel like green is kind of similar to blue in the way that they're both like neutral, and like neutral and calming. That's kind of what Starbucks and Spotify are. And then yellow. It's very vibrant and creative. A lot of people say it's trending right now, particularly with Ikea, like the bright yellow logo. People like having it on jean jackets and stuff. And there's also like yellow smiley faces, again, very happy. So yeah, here we have Ikea. Post-it notes, you want post-it notes to stand out because you're putting them on white paper, so you want them to be like bold, like a highlighter. Highlighter is also yellow. And then this caution sign is kind of like, it's bright like red, but it's like slightly different because the red is stop, but the yellow is like just caution. And then a design poster, like a lot of the design posters you'll see around are are yellow, because yeah, it's trending. It's really aesthetic, and it also is like kind of close to white, so you can like add a lot of graphics on. You can see like red and black is added onto that poster, and it stands out really nicely against the yellow. Now we have black. So black is supposed to be like formal and sophisticated. It's associated with being like professional, appropriate, like elegant. It's also a little bit modern. So you'll see brands like Uber have black. And if you think of it, Uber's competitor is Lyft, which is bright purple, and that's like this basically the opposite of black, like really bright, like fun purple. Even though they both provide the same service for around the same prices, you can see Uber is trying to be a little bit more like modern, a little bit more professional, and that also makes sense because I feel like Uber, like getting an Uber is a business transaction. You don't really want it to be like Facebook, like something social. So that's why black makes sense in this case. And then we have Apple and Chanel that are both kind of like luxury, very stylish, I guess. And it's also very like minimalist black because like the Apple logo is often not actually black because it's placed like on your computer or like on the back of your phone in like a different tone. And same with Chanel, sometimes it's like that gold, like the like gold insert into like a purse or something. So it's also very like versatile in terms of branding. And on the bottom right, you have a business card. And if you zoom in, it actually says Jonathan Doe instead of John Doe, just for that like extra level of like professionalism. And so as you can see, the black is kind of like, it makes it a very professional card. And then here are just all the colors lined up. It's not, I feel like it's kind of subjective, like what each of these colors convey, but for some of the ones we didn't go over, orange, confidence, success, bravery, and sociability. Purple is like luxury, and then pink is like sweet. I feel like light pink is often associated with bake shops, even if they're not like only selling strawberry or fruit flavored things. Like they're still pink because it's very cute in a way. And then brown, I feel like I see brown for a lot of outdoors companies and a lot of hardware companies because, you know, like mud, dirt, like camo kind of. It's dependable, rugged, and trustworthy. Yeah, and then white is clean and simple, and also innocence, I guess. Okay, and color on the internet. So you likely won't notice if color is portrayed well on the internet, but you'll notice if it's not portrayed well. So you can see in the bottom one, again, I don't know if this is actually a real website or not, but basically like every component is a stark contrasting color, which makes it really difficult to know what to focus on. So this image in the middle, it seems like it should be central, but it's almost in the background because it's not as bright as these three like headings out here with a flag. I'm not sure what flag this is, but German flag, of course, because it's a German, yeah. And then, yeah, red brick in the background, it's like 3D, it's a little strange. And then even the menu is like different colors, like blue, white, and then yellow. But comparison to Yelp, they basically only use like gray, white, and this like orangey red. And that allows you to see everything else that's going on the website. So it allows you to see the photos in the map really well, because whoever was designing the website knew, like, okay, we want the focus on the color in the photos, so that's why we're going to have like an absence of color in the actual website design. And we're only going to use it for stuff that's absolutely necessary. So the ratings and the search, if you think of it, that's like why you go to Yelp, to search restaurants and their ratings. Okay, and now we're going over to components of a color. So this is going to be how you pick colors in Figma. So the hue is basically like the identity of the color, whether it's green or blue. Yeah, and then value is how bright the color is. So that's like on a scale of the most bright color to that color mixed with black. And then saturation is the most bright color and then the color mixed with white. So for saturation, imagine like white paint, and then you're like slowly adding drops of a color into it until it's like at its highest saturation. And those are a little bit easier to see on the Figma color selector. So you can see saturation is along the top and value is along the bottom. And then hue is that rainbow bar is going to be like what hue you're picking. And the color picker. So the color picker is really useful. You use it all the time, particularly if you're doing illustrations. But the color picker allows you to fill any object, stroke, or text with like a hue or with a gradient or like any sort of color. And you can find it on the right sidebar, basically like under all your settings, under where the text is, there's a little gray square, and I can actually show it. So if I just make a rectangle, oops, the color picker is right here. And the color and how to use the color picker, you can basically open it up and apply different blend modes and paint settings that we're going to go over next. So this is an in-depth look at the color picker. The first one on the top left is how the color fills the shape. So it's solid, and then linear and radial angular diamond are all types of gradients. So a linear gradient is just fading from like blue to light blue, and then the radial is like the direction of the gradient, and it's like emanating out in a circle form. You guys can like experiment around with that to kind of see how it works. And the blend mode on the top right here is actually going to control how the color is overlaid onto the page. So normal is just like a plain normal rectangle, as if you were putting like a piece of paper on the table. But as you go down, some of these are actually applying mathematical calculations to like change the way the color appears on the page. So for example, subtract is actually like subtracting the color of the pixels on the page from the colors you're putting on. So that's going to create a different hue. And then overlay is kind of if you were applying like a piece of transparent, like one of those light pieces of glass over the page. They all have like a different look, so you can also experiment around with those. And 3 is the color tool we just went over. 4, mainly you don't use that tool this much, but it's basically how Figma is representing the colors. So Hex is just this normal like color map, but you can also use CSS is for coding. So if anyone's using code and they're asking, oh, what's your CSS code for your color, then you know that's here. 5 and 4, 5 is the hue, or 5 is the hue, and 6 is the opacity. So you can see it's more of that like checkerboard pattern on the left, which means it's like more transparent. And 8 is going to be like where the existing colors in your document are. So if you just put a bunch of colors on your document, you can easily access them here, which is really convenient. Okay, and now we have some external tools to help you with color. Okay, so this is coolers. I actually use this all the time because it basically gives you like infinite number of color palettes to use for any of your designs. So right on the front page, like trending color palettes, I feel like the one on the left could be for like, I don't know, shaved ice. It seems very tropical. And you can also search by color. So you can search red, and there's a bunch of color palettes with red in them. It's kind of like that Instagram trend. It's for artists where it's like, show your color palette versus like, show what you created. Yeah, these are literally the color palettes. And Dribble. Okay, Dribble is also another way to look for inspiration. It shows you like people's branding materials, logos, animation, just like general art stuff. And yeah, it's basically like Instagram for art stuff, so I highly recommend it. Okay, questions about color and all of that? Okay. Just move on then? Cool. Okay, and now we're going on to styles. So like when you have a file in Figma, whether you're like making a website or a game or anything, you'll have like some consistent styles you use for color and text. And so we're going over like how to make those styles and how to choose them in this section. So creating styles. You can see on the left, you can create a bunch of colors and name them for a particular style. So for this blog, you can select all these colors and name them blog for easy access. And for the text, you can name them like, yeah, for the text you can choose your typefaces, which is really convenient because then you don't have to like go back over and over again and find like what text you used. Okay, and now we're going over how to create a color style. So I will actually show this. So say I want a color style for this rectangle. I'll pick a color, maybe like pinkish red, and then you click these 4 dots above the fill, and you press plus to add that as a style, and then you can name it like light pink, create style. And from then on, when you create another an image, you'll see these 3 colors here, and this is the color we just created. So when you're making a document, like you can just do this and you can easily like color multiple things the same style. So if you were making Yelp, you could just make that red, like primary red, and then color everything with that same color. And text styles. So text styles can also, like color styles, be like you can make them consistent across a document, and you can apply them to a block of text or a portion of the text. To create it, you also are going to click the 4 dots in the text section of the property panel, and then the plus icon, then create that style. You can also name it. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about styles before we move on to critique? Nope? Okay, cool. Okay, so critique. This is going to be very useful, and it's actually our lab coming up this week. You're going to critique each other's trading cards, and so we're going to be going over like specific ways how to do that. So critiques, common misconceptions. A lot of people think critique is really scary, and it's more focused on like negative, kind of like degrading a design, but it's actually like one of the best gifts you can give someone, because you're helping them improve their design, and everyone wants to get better. So this is basically why we do critique. And you can use the commenting tool for critique, which we went over earlier in this lab, especially because the commenting tool allows you to pick like specific parts of a file and give like specific feedback on that. Okay, so we're going to be using the sandwich method, which is, as this graphic shows, you provide initial positive feedback, then constructive criticism, not really negative, but like constructive criticism, and then again with positive feedback. So the negative feedback is not like rude or mean, or like it's not supposed to make you feel like negatively, but it's supposed to be improvement oriented, like something that you notice that could possibly be changed for the better. Okay, so this is a bad example of critique. I think the logo looks pretty good, but I'm not a huge fan of the colors you chose. Overall, it's super creative, and the ice cream cone is cool. So if you look at the adjectives they use, like good, huge fan, creative, cool, like what does something that's creative look like? I feel like that's like an art history major question. Like, you're not actually trying to give any specific feedback about the design. And the only specific thing they mention here is the colors, but they don't say like what specifically about the colors they don't like. I mean, we just went over like value, hue, like contrasting, different connotations. There are like so many things you can bring up other than just saying like I'm not a huge fan of the colors. Okay, and here's a better example. This is great. I love the contrast between the colors and the beige. The colors really pop. What made you choose them? I recommend staying consistent with the typefaces. The sans serif C's look a bit awkward when the remaining letters are serif, but overall I think the design matches the playfulness of the brand. The little details in the drop are a nice touch. So this one is really useful because they mention actually a lot of really specific things that I didn't even notice looking at this design for the first time. Like, I did not notice that the C and the creations were a different like typeface. And they did notice these little drops, which I did not even notice. And it also gives them like a specific thing to build off of, which is really nice. Okay, and then again, how do these examples differ? The bad feedback is vague, doesn't point to anything specific. And then the good feedback is constructive and refers to a specific aspect of the design. And another part of the good feedback that I forgot to mention was that it encourages open conversation by asking questions. So you notice they asked like, why did you choose these colors? And that helps you like understand like what the designer is going for, and then you can like kind of help them, because that doesn't always come through the design, which is again why critique is really important. Okay, now I think Ace is going to do our demo.
Are there any other questions?
Oh yeah.
About critique? Cool, you're going to be doing it on Thursday, but thank you so much to Caden and Erin. If you could give them a hand, it was their first time teaching this class. I think they did a great job. Yes, so we have another like 30-ish minutes of lecture left. So what we're going to do is go into a demo. I don't think this is going to take 30 minutes. So I'm also thinking about random fun stuff that we could do at the end, like fun examples of websites that talk about like interesting uses of type and interesting uses of color. And if any of you have anything that you would like to share, I'd be happy to pull it up. But first we're going to go into this demo. I'm going to stall for a second. If you want to open up this file or any other file and follow along with it, I would highly recommend you do so. We're basically just going to walk through a little bit of the more technical stuff since we didn't do a demo last class. I know that you've all probably already done your trading cards, so you probably have a good feeling of how to do a lot of these things, but we'll go ahead and do this anyways. So if you have this file open, you can go to the demo space. There should be a copy of this here. I'm also going to show you really quick like hiding comments. I'm going to press Shift-C. They're all gone. I'm also going to tell you one of the most important Figma hacks, which is if you press Control or Command and then the question mark, you open up this quick menu where you can look for any quick command. You can just type it in and it'll probably show up. So I can type in like show comments here. This is really helpful for if there is a shortcut or a behavior or a feature that you're like, oh god, I wish Figma had this. It might already have it. Just try looking for it on the quick menu. That's probably your best bet to look it up. But anyways, that aside, let's go ahead and see how we would tackle doing this demo. So this is clearly some kind of mobile app screen, probably some kind of to-do list app. If I want to get this exact frame, I don't know exactly what this is designed for, but I can take a look at the phones and I could just pick one. Let's go ahead and do the iPhone 13/13 Pro. It's not quite the same dimensions, but let's make a version of this. Yep.
Sorry, how do you get to that page again?
Yeah, so if you want to go to the slides link, bit.ly/figmadecal-lec2, press duplicate, in the same way you do for the homework, and then open the file that gets duplicated. When you open that on the pages, it should land you on lecture slides, but right underneath that it says demo space. So click there. Yeah, for sure. All right, so first thing I want to do is put down a frame. That's the container that all of the content is going to go into. You might be tempted to just do a white rectangle, but it is important that you put things in containers. This helps you have a good hierarchy for later. And also you'll see that it kind of holds everything, and so if I move this around, it's going to act as one unit instead of having to move everything around separately. So I see kind of breaking down what we have here. There's a headline here. We can actually just open this up. He grouped everything for some reason. We've got a couple of icons. So we have this hamburger menu. That's that 3-line menu you see a lot of the time in apps. Designers are really good at coming up with fun names, so it's called a hamburger menu. It's just 3 lines, and it's going to open up some kind of additional set of functions. So with that, I think that what he's actually done, it's not 3 lines. He's actually just made 3 rectangles with round corners. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Shift-1 to zoom out. And I'm going to go ahead and make 3 small rectangles. So let's make them probably like 5 or so pixels tall. I'm going to drag out 3, so I'm going to hold Alt, and I'm dragging one out, and I'm dragging another one out. I see that they're all 9 across, and I can make sure they're all the same distance. For each of these, what I actually want is the border radius to be smaller. So if you see this rounded corner right here, the corner radius, I can increase this to say 5. And that's going to round out those corners for me. It's now going to be kind of an oval. If I want to have it be less harsh, I can do 1. You're going to see it's just barely rounded. But if I go anywhere higher than 5, it's not actually going to care. It's just going to be fully rounded. So for all 3 of these, I'm going to make them 5. And let's see what color he used. I could do this in 2 ways. I see here that the color is FF7262, or I can use the Eyedropper tool. The Eyedropper tool, there isn't necessarily an icon for it, but if you press I, if you hover on anything, you can go ahead and grab the color of whatever you're hovering on. You see in that top right corner, the little grid in the circle, it tells me the color of whatever my mouse is hovering over. So if I want to zoom in right here, I can grab this color, and you're going to see when I zoom back out, that the color has been adopted here. So I've made mine a little bit too big. If I select this, I can see the dimensions. It is 22 by 42. We'll kind of round that a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and change these all as well. I've selected all 3 of them. I can resize them at the same time. So I'm going to do 22 here and 42 here. That was not right, sorry. I was looking at the wrong items. Sorry, the width and the height are actually 42 and then 4. So I'm going to grab those. 42 and 4. If at any point I'm going too fast or this is confusing, please stop me. Okay, I'm going to move these to be a little bit closer. We're going to talk about this a little bit next week, but if you ever select 3 objects that are evenly spaced, these handy like pink handles are going to appear, and they actually let you control the spacing really, really easily. So if you drag those handles out, you're going to be able to move them like this, and I want to make them, let's say, 4 pixels apart. Let's go with that. It's a little bit closer than what he has, so I'll make it 8. Cool. Okay, we've got a little bit of a menu that we have going on here. I'm going to group this because I never want these 3 rectangles to be separate from each other. I always want them to be together. So I'm going to group them with Control G. And now this acts as one object, one group. I will rename this to hamburger menu. Cool. I'm not going to make the Figma logo today. We can do that later if you want, but I'm just going to copy paste it because a good designer steals. So I put this right here in the middle, and then I'm going to add this piece of text. Good morning, Miles. It's in Open Sans bold, and it is 42.72 font. Never do that. Don't ever do point fonts. Just do a flat font. But you'll see here that because I've selected it, I didn't manually go and change my text, but Figma is smart in that it automatically applies the text style of the last piece of text you selected. So because I've done that, I'm automatically going to be using this. But if I go back and select, like, take out the trash, when I start typing now, it's actually going to match the size and the weight of the font that I previously selected. So this is a nice hack if you're just trying to build really quickly and you've already made the font that you use and you haven't made it a style yet. You should make it a style, but if you haven't already, you can just go back and click on something. So let's have this say, good morning, Ace. Good evening, it's not morning, Ace. And we talked a little bit last week about this idea of text wrapping. You see here that this is extending past the edges of the screen. I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is change it to this auto height wrapping, and then I'm going to make the width a little bit smaller. And now it's going to automatically wrap the text. So if I add more pieces of text here, it's going to keep on wrapping no matter what. It's never going to hit the edges of the screen like it was before. That's not my name, so I'm going to remove that, add that, and then back here. For the daily tasks, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to select it and then make the next piece of text, daily tasks. And let's have some good spacing. So we'll talk a little bit more about kind of alignment and these things in the future, but let's have these be evenly spaced from the edge. So this is 29 pixels apart. I'm going to move it to be 24 and then 36 from the top. You're going to learn later that having multiples of 4, multiples of 12, and multiples of 8 is really good practice in having these kind of margins. Any kind of multiples of like odd numbers leads you to kind of weird amounts. You might be tempted to do like 10, 15, 5. That's not necessarily good practice for technical reasons. So kind of remember like multiples of 12, multiples of 8, those are safe numbers. So I'm going to go here. You see that this is not actually centered. I'm going to move it and wait for it to kind of pop into the middle. Right there. It is about 24 from the edge, so I'm good here. And then this daily tasks, I'm also going to move it to be 24 from the edge. That's 26. I shift it over just a little bit, and I'm good here. I'm going to move this. These are about 24 across. This is an image, so it's not quite the right size. And these are also 24 apart. That feels pretty good to me for now. So next I've got a couple of buttons here. These are rectangles. I'm going to go ahead and just make rectangles on my own. I also want these to be about 24 apart from the edge. Shift it over 10, though it's holding shift, lets you nudge it over by 10 pixels instead of by 1. So we're going to have that be 24 from the edge. We're going to make this a little bit bigger. And then we can see the fun math part of Figma, where this is 27 away. I don't want to drag out 3 tiny pixels because that's a headache. So what I'm going to actually just do is go into the width of this particular object and write +3. And it does the math for you. It does math in there. You can also do like division and stuff like that. It can do most basic math and parse it out pretty easily. The height of this looks to be around 68 pixels. I genuinely do not know why everything is in decimals there. We'll have to fix that for the future. But I'm going to go ahead and make it 60 pixels as well. I'm going to eyedrop that green here, and then I'm going to round the corner to be Let's say 12 pixels rounded. So I've got that kind of green button, and now what I'm going to do is add a piece of text on it. So I'm going to select this again, my cheating method, and then write take out the trash. And I want to center these. So if I want to center them, I could just drag these around until they kind of pop into where I want, but I can also use these alignment properties up here. So if you look at the very top right corner, there's a couple of these alignment illustration icons. I can align the horizontal centers. I'm going to pop this to the middle, kind of vertically, and then I can align the vertical centers. So clicking those two buttons is going to have those two things centered the way that I want them to. It might have shifted exactly where this was. You see, it might not necessarily be where it is. This is 19 away now, so I'm going to group these, again with Control G, and then move it to be 24 away from here. Perfect. Now for the bottom two, I'm going to go ahead and just make copies instead of making them from scratch. So I'm going to copy this holding Alt and Shift, and because I'm holding Shift, it's not going to move in the diagonal directions. And I'll have it be 24 pixels away again. This is do CS70 homework, which is a terrible call-out because I actually dropped homework for CS70. But I'm going to make this black, and then I'm going to make the button itself gray. Same thing goes for the bottom. I'm going to make it 24 across. Figma Decal lesson. And so when you look at this, can anyone tell me kind of what the types of buttons are here? You know, what do you get from the green button versus the gray button? What do you think is the difference between them? It's green, but it's completed, exactly. So there's nothing else in this app that actually communicates that, but you can tell, like we talked about with hierarchy before, green means done, green means good. And in this sense, you were able to tell that means the task has been done. I will say when we talk about accessibility later on, using only color to indicate something is completed is not really actually good accessibility. In case you are colorblind, Miles is colorblind. I don't know why he did this. But if you wanted to maybe improve this, one thing that you could do is maybe strike this out, which you can do here in the text. You can add a strike through as an extra layer of communication to say, hey, this task is done in a way that's not just color. But yeah, for the time being, we'll leave it at that. So we're going to mimic these other buttons as well and add this add new task button at the bottom. I'm going to duplicate it one more time, and you can see here that instead of having a fill, it is white, and we have a gray outline around it. So I'm going to teach you one more fun shortcut. If I select this, this is copied from Illustrator if anybody also uses that. If you press Shift X, it'll flip the stroke and the fill for you. So that's changed it from no stroke to gray stroke, and then from gray fill to no fill. Cool. And I will add this text as gray as well. This is a little bit too light. I don't think this can be easily read. So for accessibility reasons, I'm going to make it just a little bit darker, and I'm going to fix my typo right there. And you can see he's also added this plus sign. For the sake of time, we're just going to copy it, but he did the same idea as the hamburger menu. It's two rounded rectangles. One has just been turned 90 degrees, but we're just going to go ahead and copy this icon that says plus sign and paste it here. Okay, so we've pasted the plus sign. We're going to go ahead and place that in here. And I want to add this to this larger group with this whole item. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this in here. So when you see these buttons, you see that I have groups, group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4. What we're going to talk about next week is components and variants. This is a case where you should be using components. The reason why we do that is because you saw just now, I dragged and I copied and pasted and reused the same asset multiple times. This is a great case to use components, which are kind of building blocks, where if you're doing UI design, if you're doing a website, if you're making an app, you're going to be using the same stuff over and over again. So making it reusable is a really good way to keep your design ecosystem really healthy. But this is about it. We've made an iPhone 13 version of the screen. Does anybody have any questions about any of the stuff that I just did? Yes?
What was the shortcut to flip the last one?
The shortcut to do? Oh, it was Shift X. Yep, for sure. Any other questions? Any technical stuff? Cool. All right. I will go ahead and share the kind of last couple of announcements for today, and then with some extra time, we'll dive into some like fun things. But thank you again to our two instructors for today. We'll be diving into what you can expect for the rest of this week. So homework this week is the brand design system homework. Oh, okay. The lights turned off. This is going to now show up on our community page. It's been updated, so everything is live. The B Courses assignment will go live in about 12 minutes. And so this homework is going to be identifying a brand that you particularly like and then deconstructing the elements of it. So specifically understanding, what typeface do they use? Do they have multiple typefaces? Is it, for example, a font that they custom commissioned so that nobody else uses that font? A lot of companies do that, and you'll find that there's going to be some brands that you select that you're not going to be able to access their font, but you might have a good time finding a dupe for it, something that's really similar. I hear the word dupe a lot with like makeup products, where it basically gets the same job done, but a lot cheaper. So that's kind of the goal for some of this project. You're also going to be identifying their colors. You can already see in this example here. Pepsi has really 3 strong colors, but with Spotify, you might think, well, they just use green, but it is actually a really important part of their brand identity to also use black. Spotify is one of the only apps that does not have a light mode at all, so that black is a really core part of their identity as well. You're also going to be instructed to develop some kind of graphic, infographic, piece of information, marketing material, something in the style that they use, so understanding their visual identity. If you're worried that illustration or graphic design is not your strong suit, that's okay. We just want to get you to have an understanding of breaking down a brand into its kind of core building blocks and core pieces. And like we mentioned before, Lab 2 is critique. We're going to be doing our very first critique. We'll open with a little bit of an icebreaker, do something fun, and then we're going to be sharing our trading cards that you've all made this week. So it's a low pressure thing. Please don't feel like you have to do extra work or extra preparation for it. We just want to make sure that everybody gets practice with actually doing critique. If this first one feels scary to you, that is okay, but we hope that you get a lot out of it. All of the TAs that are on the staff do really wonderful critique. They're going to be giving you feedback on your homework throughout the whole semester, so we want to make sure that we kind of break the ice and feel comfortable giving each other feedback on our work. Cool. The secret word for today is, do y'all want to pick one? Movie. M-O-V-I-E. That is the secret word for today. Can you write it on the board? Movie will be the secret word for today. A couple of announcements. The homework is up. Also, do not forget to do the readings. We do also have reading responses as part of homework in this class. They're never very detailed. You don't have to write an essay for us every week, but we do want to do a little bit of supplementary work, learning about kind of design principles. If you also did not get a chance to go to Lab 1, please complete it on your own and message it to me, and I will count you off as completed. But yeah, that wraps it up for kind of the formal part of Lab. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording here, but I'm going to share some fun examples of stuff for a little bit because I think it's neat. And if anyone has anything else that they would like to share, I'm happy to pull it up. But thank you for those of you watching. Hopefully this is not too late. We'll be adjusting the attendance form cutoff time or kind of deadline accordingly as well. So thank you so much.